I decided to put Pergo floor in for the first time in my life. I know nothing about carpenter work, nothing about Pergo floors. I got online, got some directions. I got fairly comfortable. I used the spacers like they said to use. This being a manufactured home, the walls are just a million miles off. I'm going to end up putting probably a little bit bigger fascia boards on the floor than I normally would have, but I got my gap that I needed. But what I discovered was, I was looking at all the different ways of putting these Pergo floors on, and there's an alternate method for putting it on a manufactured home. And so I started out, I didn't follow the directions exactly. I didn't realize that this wall over here has a 2-inch wall in it, so I'm going to have to put some bigger baseboards on than I originally planned. But I started putting the flooring in, and I started running some issues with putting the joints together. It kept breaking these little ends off the ends. So I went back to the directions, and the directions said there's an alternative method of putting these boards on. I went to the alternate method, and it's a piece of cake. The alternate method is basically, I'm going to tap one in here real quick and then I'll show you how I started it. But the alternate method is, let's see here. Well, I'll tap one in first off. I've already got it started, so I'm going to go ahead and tap it in, and then we'll show you how we went about doing it. Again, I know nothing about woodworking. It's the first time I've ever done something like this. Okay. Okay. I've never in my life put a Pergo floor down. We bought this triple wide trailer house. We're moving into a new triple wide trailer house for us, new used. And I've measured the walls out. I got my spacing like I wanted, but the back wall over there has a big wall out, so I'm going to have to put a little bit wider baseboards than I originally planned. I got the gap like they requested, from the directions. But in the directions, it showed putting the Pergo floor in like this. It showed the Pergo floor putting flooring like this and snap it down and then sliding it into these ends. Well, I kept breaking off these tabs and getting a lousy fit. So I went back to the directions, and the directions have an alternate method. The alternate method, see if I can get this to work here. The alternate method is you slide the end in first, get a nice fit like this, slide the end in, making sure everything's fitting, and once you slide the end in, you take your little block. You can use a 2x4, I guess, you just start working it in. Just show you this last little bit here. See that little gap? See that little gap going down there? You just keep working this back and forth. Now I did notice a couple of times that I got some little fibers down in there. Of course, you don't want those fibers coming up and messing the floor up. So when you, again, I know nothing about woodworking. It's the first time I've ever done something like this. Okay. Okay, I've never in my life put a pergola floor down. We bought this triple wide trailer house. We're moving into a new triple wide trailer house for us, new used. And I've measured the walls out. I got my spacing like I wanted, but the back wall over there has a big wall out, so I'm gonna have to put a little bit wider baseboards than I originally planned. I got the gap like they requested, you know, from the directions. But in the directions, it showed putting the pergola floor in like this. It showed the pergola floor putting flooring like this and snap it down and then sliding it into these ends. Well, I kept breaking off these tabs and getting a lousy fit. So I went back to the directions, and the directions have an alternate method. The alternate method, see if I can get this to work here. The ultimate method is you slide the end in first, get a nice fit like this, slide the end in, making sure everything's fitting, and once you slide the end in, you take your little block, you can use a 2x4 I guess anything, and you just start working it in. I did notice every now and then that I'd see a little piece of fiber just kind of rolling up. And if I see something like that, I would just flick it out, because it kicks up. It kicks up against you. The other thing I did notice is don't use too big a hammer. I could probably use a lot smaller hammer than this. You just want to do very light taps. It doesn't take a very big hammer to make this thing go in. You just kind of work at full length. That's it, board's almost in. Just gonna come back here. You just see a very slight gap up there. I'm just hitting this thing ever so slightly. If you hit it too hard, you'll break the end of the board up. And there it is, snapped in. Not bad for an idiot body and fender and tow truck driver. But we're getting her. I've staggered the seams. I've made a few cuts. I've only wasted, I've wasted maybe one board so far on my cuts, but by the time I get all done, I'll probably waste about maybe a total of 3 boards on this whole floor, so that's not too bad, I don't think. I was kind of watching things. If you see any little fibers coming up, you want to pull them out, because they will make the funny gap in there if you're not careful. This is the first time I've had this happen to me like this. Starting with the end like this. You start with the end. You just click the end in like this. Slide it over like that. You can see you got a little narrow line here, a little bit wider up there. What we're going to do is we're going to, let's see if I can show you this line if we go here. We're going to take our tapping tool. This is our tapping tool. You could probably use a 2x4 and that'd work just fine too, but the tapping tool is what I bought. So now you notice how the gap started to close here? And you just work it up here a little bit. Just keep tapping it. You gotta work it up. Gotta kind of work the whole thing in a little bit. I come back down here. Takes a little bit more. This is a much more efficient method for me, in that I wasn't having a problem with the ends curling up on me. Bring it back down here. Again, end up with a nice, tight seam. We're clear at the end now. That makes for a really nice, tight seam. If you have a little gap down here at the bottom, you can take and, if you have a little gap down here at the bottom, you can go to the end and take your tapping block and just tap the end very gently. But I'm an idiot. I've never done this stuff before, and it's going in pretty easy for me. I mean, I'm struggling getting up and down, but I'm getting it. I'm about halfway through, and I probably got maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours into it. Probably if I had another person cutting for me and setting things in front of me, I could have probably cut that time down by 30%. I have to keep getting up, measuring, cutting each end, but we're getting there. I hope to have this room done, finished today, and then I can start doing the sill plates and stuff, so, or the threshold. So anyway, kind of an idiot's guide to putting these blocks on, or putting the wood in. It does seem to work best for me to slide the ends in and then tap it full length. I was doing the opposite before. I was sliding the panels together and then tapping the ends together, and I kept breaking the tabs off the ends. I have to go back and clean them up, and this method I haven't had to do that yet. So for an amateur, your best bet is option 2, which is put the ends in first and then use a tapping block and tap it in. Thanks for watching, and if I do any more woodworking, I'll do a video on it, because this for me is the easiest method. And I think for amateurs, maybe pros, they have a system for tapping the ends in together. I don't know, but for me, I put half the floor in and I struggled with it. I've had no problems at all doing it this way. It just goes